All right, just one or two more. Did you expect any cataclysmic event?
All right, as the trial continues and the defense continues to call up witnesses, there's a lot of speculation. Will the defense call up Alex Murdaugh himself to testify in his own defense? Our very own Andy Mack talked to a legal expert on the possible moves that the defense could make. And let's listen right here on Live Now from Fox.
Here with Live Now from Fox, and I know a lot of people are continuing to watch that Alex Murdaugh trial there in South Carolina, and potentially some big developments coming out of that trial. Will Alex Murdaugh himself testify in this double murder trial? We're going to be joined now by founder of Tympanick Law, criminal defense attorney Matt Tympanick. Thank you so much for joining us here on Live Now from Fox, and we may not know when he will take the stand or if he will take the stand, but just take us through a little bit of what it could mean if he is on the stand in his own defense here in the coming days.
What I can tell you is this. I advise my client never to take the stand because there are too many things you cannot control. The only situations where you have to take the stand is one, where the prosecution has made their case, or two, it is a self-defense case where you need to explain to a jury what was going through your mind when you committed the act in question.
Certainly, and obviously those two don't really apply here just because he's doing it. But what are the pros of him taking the stand? Because he can kind of go against what is said. For example, he said he wasn't at the dog kennels, and we're learning new information. We saw quite a bit of evidence, potentially his voice on some video recording. Maybe what's a pro for him taking the stand?
A pro for him would be taking the stand is that the jury actually sees the human side of him. Obviously, the jury have been looking at him throughout the trial and seeing his emotional reactions, talking about the death of his son and the death of his wife. But he needs to, if he were to take the stand, a pro would certainly be that the jury would get to see the human element, that he's still Buster's father, and he's obviously the husband of the late Maggie Murdaugh, of the late Paul Murdaugh. And the jury to actually see him as a person. As you've seen in the media and throughout the trial, there are definitely situations where he's come off like a monster because whoever committed these acts certainly was. So he would need to explain to the jury that he is not who the prosecution says he is.
Definitely. That is a very good point. The human element in so many trials makes a huge impact. I do also want to ask you, because Alex Murdaugh, a disgraced lawyer from South Carolina. He spent quite a bit of time in the courtroom, also questioning some witnesses on the stand. Does that help him? Does that hurt him, being a former lawyer, a person that has been in this scenario quite a bit?
There's an old saying, lawyers make the worst witnesses. And that's because lawyers tend to believe that they know everything and can walk in any situation and know how it's going to happen. Alex Murdaugh primarily did civil law, and that's eventually what he was fired for, and he was a county prosecutor. This is a criminal case. The prosecutor who would be questioning him is highly, highly skilled and would be able to nail him to the wall if he were to testify. Obviously, the kennel video, the gunshot residue, all of the things that the prosecution kind of threw against the wall and is more circumstantial, they'd be able to delve deeper into. Where were you? When were you? That's not what your cell phone evidence says. That's not what this kennel video says. All of which could turn the tide in this case. Right now, I don't believe the prosecution has made their case. And if Alex Murdaugh were to take the stand, I think they would actually put him over the top and he would be found guilty of murder.
Definitely. And that's one of the questions I was going to ask you, because you kind of laid out a few of the groundwork, the foundation for some of the questions. What kind of questions would a prosecutor ask Alex Murdaugh if he does take that stand?
It would certainly be, you were at the kennel, correct? Always on a cross-examination, you only ask leading questions. The only answers you want are yes or no, because on cross, you have a story that you want to tell. You don't want the defendant to be able to tell his story. You want to be able to tell yours. You need to lock him into a story that we know he's a liar, he's a thief. That isn't in dispute. It's whether he is the monster that killed Maggie and Paul Murdaugh. And that's what the focus of a cross-examination will be. and he takes the stand, I don't see it ending well for him.
Definitely. I also have to ask you, because we have seen Alex Murdaugh pretty emotional, not obviously on the stand as of yet, but you've seen him crying, you've seen him looking down, you've seen him kind of doing those sort of things. If he takes the stand and he's emotional in that way, like you said, the human element, does that change anything, or maybe more stoic would help him? How does the maybe emotions factor into it if he takes the stand and does get emotional?
Well, remember, when he takes the stand, the defenses want him to get emotional. Why? Because if he creates enough sympathy, it would create a shield, if it were, from the prosecution. The prosecution usually can only go hard at a defendant when it's clear and dry that he's a liar in this day and age. In the old days, always were aggressive crosses. That doesn't happen anymore. And if Alex Murdaugh comes off like a liar, the prosecution will be given the green light to go at him aggressively, and that's not what he wants. If he's able to maintain that emotional, sympathetic, the prosecution is only going to be able to go so far, because if they do go too hard, it will backfire on him, and he could cry his way into an acquittal on the murder charges.
That is so very interesting. And of course, we do not know if Alex Murdaugh is going to take the stand, testify in his own defense in this double murder trial. But obviously, he doesn't necessarily have to. Obviously, the Fifth Amendment, he can not self-incriminate himself. If he does take the stand, can he plead the Fifth in some questions, or would that really look bad for him as well?
Now, once you take the stand, you waive your right to self-incrimination. So if he takes the stand, he can't say, I invoke my Fifth Amendment rights.
All right, that is good to know.
As to the charges in this case.
All right, that is fair enough. Matt Tympanick, thank you so much for joining us here on Live Now from Fox. Any parting words, any anticipation for what to come, and maybe if and when we do know that Alex Murdaugh is on the stand?
If I were to guess, if we were to testify, it'd either be tomorrow or early next week to maximize the press coverage.
Definitely. Well, thank you so much for joining us. I know you will be watching. We at Live Now from Fox will be watching, and we appreciate your time here as always.